Welcome to Picks with the Professor, the show where a real statistics professor and his friends give you sports betting tips and picks. I'm your host, Professor Sides. That's my actual job title and last name, which is part of the reason why the mathematical model that I have built to predict various sports outcomes is affectionately known as Sideline. You'll hear more about the model during the course of this episode, set to cover select college basketball games scheduled to be played on Monday, January 19th, 2023. In case you're new here, check out the webpage on the banner. It's www.pickswiththeprofessor.com/new for some explanations of goals, community rules, full recommendations on wager scaling, and where to find additional picks. This episode will only cover what are determined to be the best, most interesting games, so the model's strongest plays might not be included today. The results for all recommended picks, the ones in this show, the model plays, and all of the plays of the day found on Patreon and TikTok can be found both on Betstamp and in the Google Sheet. Those links are in the show description. That Google Sheet also contains a full set of projections and picks on every single game. And for early access to those picks and projections, see the Patreon. That link's in the crawler below and the show description. It's also where you can access that Discord chat, which is the best place to get questions answered about these or other games, along with general fun discussion about the NFL playoffs, hockey, NBA, pickleball. I don't know. If you can bet it, we're probably talking about it over there. As always, remember there are no locks in gambling. So what Sideline provides are loves, likes, and leans. It is A, B, and C grades, or rather plays it wants you to make, plays where it can't quite get there, but a better number or price would do it, and toss-up games. But as always, take what you like and leave the rest. Lastly, please understand that good and bad variance will occur. So as much as we'd like to say we'll be profitable each and every day, that is an impossible reality for any gambler. Went away from the A, B, and C grading system for a couple of weeks there. The data had really driven what I was doing to show that the B and C grade picks weren't drastically different from each other. So spent some time trying to figure out ways to rectify that and got back to something that I like. So we're going back to that system now. No difference in that the A grade plays are still the ones that are strong plays that I recommend. And as I mentioned in the intro, that the B grade plays are the ones that are maybe giving you a little bit of a push if you like it. Don't just blindly back it. The B grade picks are probably going to track right around that 52.4% break even, whereas the C grade picks are toss-ups. They're picks that the model's going to struggle to profit on. But again, those B grade picks, ones maybe to think about, maybe ones where another half point or full point or better odds might be worth the investment. But the model's just not quite there. So it's basically just kind of going back to parsing the leans into the stronger leans and weaker leans. So there's just a lot of ways you could think about it. Again, the A grade plays are what you would consider just plays. And then the B grade picks are just strong leans maybe. And then the C grade picks are weaker leans. With all that said, Jake, welcome back on the show here. Welcome back to me being at home again, rather than traveling all over the state of Texas. It's nice to be back home. You've had some travel. I've had some travel. I feel like maybe I say this and we haven't talked about this. I think we're all, between you, me, and cousin Jared, all kind of like staying home for a bit so we can kind of have our normal schedules. The last month has just been a crazy time, probably for a lot of our viewers too, with a lot of traveling on holidays and breaks and kids' school being off. But it's been a wild month, I feel like, for everybody on this show, traveling at some point or another, it seems like.
Yeah, it's been crazy. Holidays, vacations, getting all that figured out at the end of the year was a crazy kind of schedule thing.
Yeah. Now we're buckling in for the conference ride. We've gotten to see enough conference games at this point to start getting a better feel for some teams. There are a few that are. I feel like there's still as many questions today as there were from the start of the season, based off how they've played lately. We're going to talk about one of those today. One of them, of course, Kentucky. With the finally kind of using better lineups that I know people, if you're a Kentucky fan, have been clamoring for the use of different lineups, kind of finally actually playing a better rotation, looking like the team we thought they'd be all year.
Yeah, the sad part about that, it wasn't a coach's decision. He was forced into it with injuries. So don't get too excited if you're Kentucky. He really likes Severe Wheeler for some reason.
It's so interesting because you have to wonder, you see the results and you have to be he's not blind to that, right? But yeah, you would be the first coach in the history of coaches, whether it's professional, college, high school, rec league, right, to have their favorites and it confuse everybody else. But I mean, I don't even know what to make of them going forward because I don't know what lineups they're going to use and how they're going to play their rotation. There's some teams kind of hitting conference play, starting to play a lot better. UConn, I was thinking about this today. UConn was really looking. I mean, there was an episode, I don't know, a month ago where we're talking about UConn and just how dominant they looked, how deep, how physically talented, and how they were just looking like a, clearing away one of the top, one of the number one seeds. And all of a sudden now the Big East is tough, but definitely looking very human.
Yeah. I mean, everybody knows I love St. John's, but hey, they showed why there. They can really go. They can go on the road and put it through you if you start playing their kind of game. And it's shown that UConn really doesn't like to play a fast game. They want that slow, grind it out. And if you get them running, they're very, very beatable.
And I think it fooled us a little bit early on because they beat some teams playing that style, but I guess it was kind of some fool's gold. They beat some teams playing that style that maybe weren't quite as talented. The Big East obviously really deep, and every other game is a challenge, if not more, right? It's one of those where it's like you can almost guarantee every other game's a challenge, but then there's cases where you'll get 3 or 4 games in a row that are tough in that conference. So Gonna be a tough schedule, real interesting. A lot of fun here happening. Some afternoon games on Martin Luther King Day here, which I think we're all excited about. But before we get to that, some reminders. Please hit that like button if you're on YouTube. Also, if you aren't yet, please consider subscribing or following. It's free, and if you turn on notifications, you won't miss any of the college basketball, MLB, or college football content that this channel provides. I've already mentioned the Patreon, but check it out if you haven't yet. Lots of great benefits we found over there above and beyond what we do here. $3 per month gets you the money line play of the day. For another $2 a month, you get access to the Discord chat group. And for $5 more a month, you get ad-free shows delivered to you earlier than the general public and immediate access to every recommended bet. Go to www.patreon.com/pickswiththeprofessor for more details. But even if you're not there, we're still thrilled to have you here. We'll get to it. All on courtesy of BetOnline. Sign up, link in the show description and current as of the time of this recording on Sunday night. Going to start off with one of those early games, 11 a.m. Central. Hofstra at Towson. And I made the comment, this is episode's only going to cover the best and most interesting games. Might slide under your radar. Partially, I gave a little ode to this one because of the time, and if you're off work or if you're having to work and you're able to put some earbuds in this one or keep an eye on this one. This one, 2 double-digit win teams already in the Colonial Athletic. It should be a tight contest. It should be a fun one to watch and one to keep an eye on here. The Monday slate stronger than usual because of the holiday, but still not. It's not got 50 great games, but this one should be a pretty good one here. With regards to the side, it's a C grade play right now, grabbing the 2 with Hofstra, but the model says it should be Towson -1. So Towson -1, -2, there's really not a lot of discrepancy there. And so it's a pass with regards to the model on the side, but the over is pretty enticing. The total is 133.5. The model says 138.1. Jake, why is the over a great way to start off the day here on your Monday?
Look, Hofstra's got a very, very under-talked about offense. They rank 81st in Kim Palm's efficiency. They really take care of the ball, don't make a lot of mistakes there. They rank 26th in effective field goal percentage, and they're a very good shooting team. Their defense, average, very average. They give up a ton of offensive rebounds, and it really doesn't help your defense efficiency when you're handing people extra shots. It just doesn't help out a lot. I think Towson plays at that slow pace, and I think that's kind of what's keeping this total number down, but they're very efficient and rebound the ball very well. Their defense is slightly worse than Hofstra's, so I don't think anybody's going to really want to play a lot of defense here. Towson fouls just a little too much, so that I think that's going to hurt them, and I think that's why I lean Hofstra to win the game. But it's a coin toss, nothing I'm heavily invested in on the side, but I really love this over. Both teams allow at least 65 points, if not more. They're scoring closer to 70. I think this is going to be much closer to like 140, 142, something like that. And I just really think people are looking at the pace of Towson, and that's playing a little too much in this total.
Yeah, that's only one of the variables that goes into the totals pace, and it's an important one. But the other team has what they want to do as well. We always talk about pace discrepancy. Can the team that wants to slow them down, do they have the ability to? As you mentioned, Towson's defense is below average. Hofstra's offense above average. I don't think they can slow them down on defense. They can slow down on offense as much as they want. But when you talk about slowing down a game, teams that could grind a game to slow it down both with the ball and without the ball. Towson may slow it down with the ball, but they can't slow it down without because they just aren't going to be able to because their defense isn't that good. I like a lot of what you said there. You got 2 below average defenses, 2 above average offenses. I mean, that means we're going to have some good quality possessions, get us close, like I said, around that 140 number. Sideline thinks this game can flirt with the 140s. I'm like you, I lean Hofstra as well. Might be a money line type angle because it's really, like you said, the model says Towson -1, really a coin toss type game. I will say if it gets out to 4, we're recording this here Sunday night. Who knows where it'll be? Not as much time for the number to move here for an 11 o'clock game as it would be a night game. But the model would give it an A grade if it gets out to Hofstra +4. And of course, the same thing with the corresponding money line, where you'd be getting good enough plus odds that if it starts getting out to 4, it becomes a much better investment. But as it is, we think the over is a strong look in lieu of a play on the side. Which takes us to the afternoon here, 1:30 p.m. Central. Probably the game of the day here. Purdue at Michigan State. Purdue is a 4-point road favorite. I don't know if Purdue, man, like, have they figured it out? They haven't figured it out. They figured it out. Like, they're just kind of zigging and zagging everywhere. Michigan State, not really drastically dissimilar from that kind of zigging and zagging. And I think we kind of talked about this in the intro. You're going to see a lot of this in the Big East, the Big 10, and the Big 12. The conferences are so good. It's going to look – teams are going to have 2 or 3 game stretches where they look like they've got it figured out and 2 or 3 game stretches where they look like they don't, because it's just so many good teams night in and night out. I feel like so many of these games are going to be interesting in these conferences. This one should be no exception to that. Purdue, obviously the better team and should be favored on the road, but the model thinks that 4 is a little bit too much. It's a B grade play for the model, getting 4 points. Sideline says it should be Purdue -3.2. The model's been pretty accurate with both of these teams with regards to pegging their model of margin of victory differences. This just comes down to Michigan State at home should be able to keep it tight. Izzo's a good coach. You expect him to be able to figure something out and keep this game interesting. And at that point, getting 4 points in your back pocket on a game that you think is interesting makes a lot of sense. Again, not the strongest of model plays, but one that the model thinks is worth a look, getting 4 points with Michigan State. Jake, what do you think?
Yeah, you're right. This is the best game of the day. It's also extremely important when it comes to the Big Ten standings, right? This is either a 3-way tie at the end of this, or Purdue with the game lead and tiebreaker over Michigan State. This game's going to be very slow paced. Neither team wants to push it. And I mean, you got 2 really good defenses, 2 teams that don't turn the ball over. Purdue's got the most efficient offense according to Ken Palm with out there, and it's just, I mean, it's Edey, right? Like,
yeah, I would say Kid Palm loves Edey, and I mean, to be fair, who doesn't? I mean, the guy's amazing. So yeah. I know his stuff gives him a ton of respect, and it's like, can't blame him, right? Yeah. I don't think he's wrong.
He's just a problem. Yeah. And the way, and as efficient as their offense is, that lets them set their defense up, and Edey changes so many shots. He's not the greatest shot blocker in the world, but I think I was talking to this with a couple friends. I really think him coming to basketball late in life after he was already tall is huge to his ability not to jump and foul a lot, which is
he didn't learn those bad habits that everybody else learns at 14 and 15, right?
Yeah, it's just incredible for a guy that big to stay on the floor that often, and as important as he is to Purdue, since he's not fouling, he's always out there. And he's 7'4", probably reaching up close to like 11 foot. So changing
13. I don't know. You could pick any number, and I'd be like, that's probably right.
He's just a real factor. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do, what Michigan State does to counteract him. The rebounding area is going to be big. Purdue is currently the best offensive rebounding percentage, grabbing almost 40% of their misses, and Michigan State hardly ever gives up offensive rebounds. So that's just a thing with Izzo. They're just always a very good rebounding team. So that's going to be an interesting battle to watch. I'm not sure which way I lean with the side or the total currently, but I want to take Michigan State +4, but I'm just terrified that Purdue's going to find some threes where they had like when they played at the Phil Knight thing and they were just blowing through teams. Everybody was hitting. Right now it's just Lawyer and Edey. They get that third guy, it's going to be tough, but Michigan State's very good. So I think this is going to be an incredible game, fun to watch.
Yeah, and if it's at home, I think it's a lot more likely that those other guys start hitting. That's where we talk about the home court mattering so much in college basketball and being, a 3-point swing, easily in the Big Ten, maybe even more from road to neutral, another 3 back to home, because those guys – those role players are better able to hit those shots like that. This at Michigan State flips the edge the other direction. Is what should allow them to hang around. this game in Purdue, I wouldn't say Purdue guarantees to win because no one really expected Rutgers to go in there and win. But this game's at Purdue, and the probability that they run away with that is a whole lot higher than it is here, obviously, for Michigan State having a home game on this one. So the play here, Michigan State +4, model wants it to 5 for an A grade, but again, grabbing some points here still probably the best bet. With regards to total, I'm like you, not really much of an angle. Total, this one's 134, and the model says 134.2. You got some great offenses, but you got slow pace, and so it's one of those where we got the over with Michigan State and Illinois on Friday. I know there was some chatter about grabbing the points of Michigan State. Michigan State hung in there for the whole game and just couldn't quite get it done at the end. We hope to avoid that fate this time. Again, we zigged and zagged right with them last time and went with a total instead on Friday. So hopefully we're zigging and zagging back and doing the right thing, grabbing the points here on Monday. We'll stick in the Big Ten. 5 p.m. Central, Illinois at Minnesota. Illinois, a 9.5-point favorite. Again, obviously, Illinois the better team here. Minnesota probably the weakest team in the Big Ten. Sideline says 8.7. It's a C grade play for Minnesota. I like grabbing the points of Minnesota here. The main reason is that the model is not built to overreact to recent trends, but you have to really like what Minnesota has done as of late. It gives you confidence that at home they should be able to hang around and not get run out of their own building. I'll go ahead and just read to you their 3 conference games. They lost on the road to Wisconsin by 3. Of course, Wisconsin's had injury issues, but even with the injury issues, this Minnesota team was bad enough on the road. We all thought they'd lose by double digits, and they didn't. They only lost by 3. They then lost by 2 at home to Nebraska, and Nebraska not necessarily the strongest team, but again, they hung around in that game. And then winning at Columbus here on last Thursday. 3 conference games and 3 good results for Minnesota, looking like a competent team. Again, I don't think they're going to make waves in the Big Ten necessarily, but if they can just hang around here, 9.5 is a lot of points for a road team to cover in a conference game. It doesn't happen that often in a conference of this caliber. So I think grabbing the 9.5 here is just too good to pass up for this Minnesota team that, even when you go back before that, has shown an act to kind of hang around. It's really the early on in the season that their metrics look really terrible, because they were very terrible early on. But that last game they looked that bad against was Mississippi State, and that was over a month ago. For that game. And so as long as they don't look that terrible again, they ought to be able to hang around. They probably don't win, but they probably lose by, somewhere around, 6, 7, 8, 9 points, something like that. So we're going to grab the 9.5 with Minnesota. Total, this one's 138. Sideline says 137.7. So the model is not giving us a lean one way or the other on the total. But instead, I just think grabbing the points makes a lot of sense. Jake, what do you got?
Look, the Minnesota, it's a scary bet to take here. Their free throw numbers terrify me, that they're under 60%, and that could be big here with the bid under 10. But Illinois plays fast, turns the ball over a lot. There's going to be plenty of opportunities. You're right. Minnesota's been playing better here recently, last month and a half. Getting battle back and getting his legs underneath him was big. They're seeming to kind of figure things out a little bit. They're scoring a little better. Illinois – not being great away from home too, so it's not like they do much better in Champaign than they do away from it. So there's a lot of things kind of going Minnesota's way. It also helps that Illinois is a bad free throw shooting team too. Should be plenty of possessions in this game for Minnesota to have chances to keep this tough or keep this tight. I think they surprise Illinois a little bit here and hang with them all game.
Yeah, it's you talk about Illinois struggles on the road and a big number. And the thing that just comes to mind, given that we've watched 5 of the 6 NFL playoff games now, is of those 3 big favorites that everybody was just running to the window to back. I know that all 3 won, but only one of the 3 covered. And that's where we just talk about the same thing in the NFL playoffs. We talk about in conference on the road. It's like, it's just not easy to cover those big numbers. It doesn't mean it doesn't happen. This could be one of those games that the team covers a big number. But I think it just reminds me of that, because I think if you said, talking about the Ravens and the Dolphins specifically, were both very scary plays. People didn't want to make them, but they were the smart play because they were getting too many points. And I think that's exactly here. When you said Minnesota's a scary back, I'm like, absolutely. Just like some of these that we've seen here in the NFL just so recently, if that's something that you dabble in. So sometimes those scary plays are smart because so many people are on the other side. We've inflated that value. We're getting an extra point or two in a situation where Illinois should probably be favored by 8, and then you're like, ooh, I don't like that's a different story, right? But getting that a little inflated value, maybe we're getting some extra value here by getting 9.5 with Minnesota in a game that, again, if they just play like they played before and just kind of hang around and be annoying, we don't have to care if they win, if they lose by 3, 5, whatever. It don't matter. We got a lot of points in our back pocket. Gonna flip around the other side though on this one. 6 p.m. Central, Syracuse at Miami. Gonna lay the 7 with the Hurricanes. I've mentioned this before, but as the season goes along, the model is kind of built to shrink the projected margin of victory, knowing that as the season rolls down, that does get a little bit smaller. It becomes harder to cover these big numbers for various reasons. The model gives Miami -7 a B grade, not quite to an A. It's pretty close. It would get to an A at 6.5. So we're knocking on the door here at an A grade. Laying the 7 with the Hurricanes here, though, a pretty smart investment according to the model. And just when you look at the fact that they're the much better team at home, we always talk about 7 being kind of a pivot point for fouls. If you're laying a number 7 or less is always more advantageous. I love getting the 7 here. There's a lot of 6s, so shop around, get 6s even better. Again, we only make plays at one sports book here because we don't want to shop around and get a ton of extra profit that you might be hard pressed to find. But if you can go find those, it's absolutely worth it to have a couple different sports books and shop around. Again, go grab a 6 if you can. But even 7, I think, is a pretty smart investment here. Jake, the total of this one's 150. It's a little too high, knowing that Syracuse just may completely go cold from 3, which helps us win the Miami bet. But if Syracuse hits at all, this game could have a lot of points. It's not an official overplay, but I mean, I feel like we kind of want it to be an overplay, just can't quite get there. Maybe if the number comes down a little bit, just too many points, but we do expect there to be a lot of points in this one. But Miami -7 is our favorite play in this one. Tell us more.
Yeah, look, the teams that are giving Miami trouble this year are very good defensive teams. That's not Syracuse game this year.
Which is crazy to think about given Syracuse. That's what you expect from them. And you're right. I mean, that's not them this year.
Yeah, they're just actually a below average defense. They've played that zone and they've played it forever. Everybody knows how to all the details of it because there's been 80 years of Jim Boeheim coaching that on
give or take. Yeah.
But it's just a known fact in basketball. Zone defense is very hard to rebound out of. You have to make sure you find your spot and find your guy and all that because you're guarding a spot and not a guy, so it's harder to rebound. Syracuse is doing a very poor job of that this year, even with the whole zone thing considered. Their opponents are getting about 34% of their misses. That's big, adding that many extra possessions for your team. Miami, very good offensive rebounding team. They're grabbing about 32, almost 33% of their misses. They've got one of the best offenses in the nation there, and they hit 75+% of their free throws. They're an okay three-point shooting team, and I know everybody likes to say you shoot people out of a zone. That's not what happens. You go inside and work it back out. With guards like Wong and Pack. That is going to be what they're going to do all night. I think they'll shred this zone. Because Larinaga is a good coach, he'll so scheme it up, and he's got 2 really good guards. He's got a big guy that's doing pretty well too. Syracuse on the road, not been a good thing for them. Lost to Virginia, lost pretty good. 1-point win over Louisville, and we know how good Louisville is. You got a 1-point win over Notre Dame, who's not great. A 30-point loss to Illinois. 7-point loss to St. John's, and that was neutral, and a 3-point win over Richmond, and that was neutral. So anytime they leave New York, it's not been going well for them, really. Miami should get this by 10 to 12, I think. I think they're going to get there, hang there, maybe more, but I think that's about what it is. And I know that 150 number is high, and if Syracuse can hit the 3 ball, this will clear that. It's really dependent on them to get hot for an 8-minute stretch or something like that and hit a few. But so it's almost there. I'm personally going to play it, but it's not a recommended one.
I kind of wonder, and we don't do any team totals here, but I kind of think Miami team total over would be a good way to look too, because Miami should get theirs. The implied team total here would be, maybe around 77 or something like that, and I think they should get to 80. The thing is, Syracuse, you have to hit enough to force Miami to want to keep scoring, because if they don't hit, Miami could, get up, 78 to 60 in the last 3 minutes, just nothing happened. Yeah. Right. And that's kind of the question mark. And that's a little bit of the hesitancy here. But yeah, Miami should score at will. It's crazy to think that Syracuse historically, the joke well made, right, about how long he's been running that zone. But for so many years, it worked so well. It's, you have to wonder about potentially just the talent, or to some extent, because we've kind of known how to beat the zone for a while now. It's just there weren't enough talented teams that could do it. And now maybe he's just got a little bit lesser talent. Maybe the overall talent level of basketball is going up. Not really sure, but yeah, it hasn't worked as well here on the whole as well as it did maybe back in the day. Miami's offense, we talked about Purdue's offense earlier, how good they are. Miami's offense isn't that far behind. It's incredibly good. They should have no problem scoring at home. And like you said, even if they don't make shots, they should be able to get a lot of offensive rebounds against that defense. I'll never forget, as a Baylor alum, a very mediocre Baylor team beating Syracuse in March Madness a few years ago and out rebounding them something ridiculous like 40-2. I don't even know what the number was. It was insane. And they just had big guys. They just got all the rebounds. And so it was like, hey, you either made it or you missed. You got the ball back and you got a layup, and they just were basically unstoppable. And so it's like the same thing here. I don't think Miami misses that much. And if they do, they get the rebound. So it should be easy pickings for Miami. We love laying the 7 there with them, which takes us to our 8 p.m. Central game, the last one here before we get to our wild card game. UAB at Middle Tennessee State got a little double dip here. Going to lay the point with UAB and going to go over 146. This is an A-grade play according to the model. Says UAB -4. I am assuming that Jelly Walker plays. That's not 100% confirmed, but that's how we're treating this. And if so, they should go on the road and win. They are the much better team. And there should be a ton of points in this, given how good their offense is and their pace. Sideline says about 151. So a pretty good look here at the over 146 as well. Jake, tell us more.
Yeah, look, I've had a hard time backing UAB. I'm like 4-7 on them. I'm taking them again. I think they're the better team. It's a short number, so that at least that helps, because I think early in the year the hype was getting real and that number was.
That's some big numbers, and it was I feel like there were a lot of, and I think there was one that we backed them, one of those crazy back doors where we laid like 13.5 and they were up 20 with like a minute to go, and it was like back-to-back threes and they won by 13 or something weird like that happened too.
Yeah, it's been frustrating, but the over for them. For me personally, I've played it 16 times. I'm 14-2. They just create points. It's an addictive pace for their opponent. Their opponent gets sucked into it.
Who would? I mean, it's fun, right? You have to be really disciplined to not. You have to really be committed to what you're doing to not.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be in it. I mean, they've had 13 games on the year go over this number. Their last 6 in a row have gone over this number. They just play this breakneck pace, and they have a so efficient offense. It's unreal. And they clean up a good chunk of their misses if they happen to miss, where they rank 9th in the nation. That they make the free throws. They hit threes at a high rate. They have the superstar Jelly Walker. If he plays, it's incredible for us. Really helps that -1. And really helps the over, because he can just put up 50 on any night, which is he's just fun to watch. If you haven't watched him, you have to watch him. Middle Tennessee, been an okay team, especially when it comes to the over. They're playing a lot better, but than what people expected, but nothing crazy. They play at a very average pace. They're got pretty good offense, pretty good defense. They benefit a lot from the turnovers they force, where they force a turnover over like 22. It's almost 23% of their opponent's possessions. They clean up some of the misses, but they really struggle from the free throw line. They try to slow you down on the defensive end, and that's just not going to happen. That's not UAB's DNA for them to slow down. They'll take bad shots before they slow down to find a good one. And so I think this pace is really going to pick up, because Middle Tennessee likes to run, and if they force turnovers, it's going to really really go fast. And they rank below average, well below average in opponents' effective field goal percentage with Middle Tennessee State, which is hard to reconcile that with their defensive efficiency. But so when they do give up shots, it's good shots for their opponent, and that's going to be death with UAB. They've got a very underrated guy. He's kind of fun to watch, and Dishman. They've got 3 good guards to go with him. I just think the pace and everything is going to lean UAB's way. We're going to get a lot of points, be a 150s, 160 range, and UAB will pull out the win, especially with a short number. Should be nice double dip.
Yeah, but it should be a really fun one to watch. We mentioned this earlier, right? Middle Tennessee State, not a team that plays slow, but you would think might try to slow UAB down. But like we said, they're not really going to have the ability to do it. They don't have the defense to do it, and UAB ain't going to let it happen. So they can slow it down a little bit if they want offensively, but there's going to, UAB is going to generate enough possessions for it. It's like Oprah, right? They're going to give possessions to everybody. That's going to help us get these points. And they're just a much better team. Middle Tennessee State, not to take anything away from them, just about an average team across all college basketball, but UAB, a pretty dang good team. They're not going to likely win March Madness, right? But they are a very, very solid Conference USA team
you don't want to see in the first round for sure.
A team you do not want to see in the first round, could cause a lot of chaos. Absolutely. And we're going to stick in Conference USA for our overtime game, little wild card here. Not one of the better games of the day, but one that we think there's an edge on. 7 p.m. Central, Rice at UTSA. Rice is a 7-point favorite. It's only a C grade play according to the model. Model says Rice minus 6.7. So the model thinks 7's pretty accurate, but I mean, you just got a situation where Rice is playing well. They're the much better team. It's a short road trip, so you don't really have a full home court edge for UTSA in that regard. Another situation like that Miami game I talked about where there are some 6s out there, so getting 6 is better. Just make sure that I like this at 7 or below is a pretty solid investment. Jake, why do you like this one so much?
Mainly because UTSA is bad. Defense, poor. Not that Rice has a great defense, but
it's less bad.
Yeah, it's less bad. And you've also got to have an offense that's competent to take advantage of it, and UTSA doesn't have that.
Yeah.
They really just struggle everywhere you look. They turn the ball over too much. They don't force turnovers to balance it out. They shoot a lot of threes. Luckily, they're hitting them at a decent rate, but I mean, live by the 3, die by the 3, because their 2-point percentage, they rank in the bottom 20 for making inside the arc. So those 3s better get going. At least they're good at free throws, I guess. I mean, but they don't get to the line enough because they're not aggressive, because they're shooting a bunch of jump shots. So it's just not great. They're just not a good team. Rice, on the other hand, defense had, offense good. So they're going to be able to take advantage of the really bad defense. They play at a fast pace. Their turnover deficit isn't as bad, I guess is the way to say that. They rebound the ball well. They shoot 3s. They actually make inside the arc, unlike UTSA. There's just everything is going to lean Rice's way. I think they get this about 10 to 15. They're just a much, much better team here.
Yeah, and you talk about Rice's pace. They are a fast-paced team. UTSA isn't really a slow-paced team. They haven't really done a lot of slowing teams down. So I think they're not gonna really be able to get Rice out of their game, even if they wanted to. Talk about their defense is so bad. They're not really going to be able to. So the pace, the tempo should play right into Rice's favor. They're the better team anyway. Like you said, UTSA's only prayer of hanging around. It's like I always talk about, right? And if you're newer here, I probably try to say this once every 2 weeks or month or so. You should be able to list at least one reason why you're going to lose every 50-50 bet. If not, you aren't thinking about your bets hard enough, which is fine. But if you think hard enough, you should be able to figure it out, because none of these plays have a higher than 60% chance of hitting. If you think it's higher than that, the math just would disagree with you. I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but our best plays hit about 60%. That's just the tippity top. And that's rare to even get that, right? It's rare to get that. So I'm just using that as an example to say there's still a 40% chance at minimum that you're going to lose any one of these individual picks, right? We're always just trying about long, slow, and steady, more winners and losers, that sort of thing. The way UTSA hangs in there in this game is they're the home team. They shoot a lot of threes and they make them. That's about the only one I could come up with. Like that's what they're putting all their hopes in, right? And so it's like, hey, if that's the only way that this loses, the main way this loses, I think it's a pretty good investment in the shot. There's no locks in gambling. Doesn't mean Rice will cover, but if that's really all UTSA's got, as bad as they are, it's just they can shoot a bunch of threes at home and make them, and that helps them hang around. It's like, I'll take my chances that, Rice being the much better team, playing fast, getting a lot of possessions, can stretch this out in the second half and win this one by double digits.
Yeah, totally agree.
All righty, that's all we've got for you here for your Monday. Jake, any parting words?
No, just hopefully you got the day off and you're able to just sit and watch basketball all day like I plan to.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, thanks for tuning into this episode of Picks with the Professor. Don't forget to subscribe so you can enjoy all the sports betting content provided on this channel. It's dropped right to your feed. Back again tomorrow with more college basketball betting content. And until then, as always, best of luck. And remember, you think you're betting money, but please don't bet you're eating money.